Good evening, race fans, and welcome back to the Attrition Sim Race Campus Oval Series presented by SM Racing Products. Tonight, we are here at the Michigan International Raceway for the first ever ASRC Oval Series race. That is 200 miles in length. That's right, tonight is going to be a bit of an endurance event for these late model drivers, as tonight is going to be our second full-length ARCA event for double points here this evening. Course down in Brooklyn, Michigan, 2 miles in length, 100 laps going to be the distance here tonight. And already, drivers are making their way on down the starting grid and getting these pace laps underway. So how about we take a look down at our starting lineup for this evening. Starting out on the pole here this evening, driver of the number 15 SM Racing Products entry, that's going to be the 15 of Garrett Streets. Starting his outside, that's going to be our Canadian driver, the Liqui Moly number 38 of Mr. Brandon Feeney. Back in third place, the Nihon Tiger number 85. That's going to be our championship leader right now, Mr. Brian Zabelski, with Corey Logan in the 24 with their best qualifying start so far this season in the CZ Robotics entry, starting off position number 4. Fifth place going to go back to the other half of the SM Racing Products team. That's going to be the 74 of Jeremy Morrow rolling off in P number 5, followed by Jason Mong in the 65 in the Hershey's Racing Engines entry. Seventh place can go back to Eric Gahn in the 51, riding in a Friday the 13th Halloween entry, back in position number 7. Eighth place can go back to that Dirt TV number 27. That's going to be the driver out of Pittsburgh, Pennsylvania, Mr. Johnny Bell, rolling off position number 8. Ninth place can go back to the 8 of Bill Watkins in the Sharpie entry, followed by the ASRC League admin, Mr. Jason Gardner. Michael Sparks in the 42, starting off position number 11 for the first time here this season. Then it's going to be Nico Morelli rounding out this 12-car field here this evening. 100 laps, the distance here at Michigan International Raceway. We are underway for the what is going to be longest race in ASRC Oval Series history so far. Of course, there always is the potential for future events to be even more crazy and chaotic than this one, but 200 miles is the distance here tonight, and it's going to be Garrett Streets that leads the field for our first lap of the race. That said, Mr. Brandon Feeney getting a very good run down on the bottom in that Liqui Moly number 38. Excuse me, I started just a little bit too early here. It looks like Mr. Brandon Feeney is actually going to be the driver who takes home lap number 1 here this evening. Right behind him, Garrett Streets riding in that draft, but Mr. Brian Zabelski now going to be the driver working the low line down here. Already, drivers working different strategies here this evening. Some of them opting to stay up high, some starting to stay down low. 200 miles is a very long time for these ARCA Menards cars, and we might actually see multiple pit cycles here this evening, but it's absolutely guaranteed we're going to have at least one. And I think that pit call is going to be where we see a lot of positions being made and a lot of effect in the long run of tonight's race is going to be ending up. But regardless of that fact, we are nearly 3 wide back in the middle of the pack. That's Johnny Bell and Eric Gahn, and almost Jeremy Morrow as well. We may be only 3 laps into this 100 lap event, but we are certainly pushing these cars like we are in the final 10 laps already. Everyone's setting incredibly similar lap times, so it's actually going to be Nico Morelli back in 9th right now in the Dirty Mo Radio entry that set the fastest lap of the race with a 41.17. And I'll tell you what, right now, he's a bit of a hard charger. He started at the tail end of this field, already up to 7th and already putting the pressure down on the 51 of Eric Gahn here. Sure enough, he's going to clear him without too much difficulty. Nico Morelli, once again, fastest lap of the race, and once again, moving up a position, now up 6 spots from where he qualified, just like that. We're just barely starting this thing off, and he is already rocketing up to the front of the field here. Potentially a little bit of trouble back in the back. Started a little bit of beating and banging. It looks like everyone got their late miles pointed in the right direction, but Jeremy Morrow is down 5 positions from where he qualified. And he just turned down a little bit. Almost in that 42 of Michael Sparks. Both drivers back in the back here in Sharpie entries. Sparks in the 42, Watkins in the 8. It's going to be a little bit difficult to tell these two drivers apart, but we're going to make it work. And it just so happens they're both using the same number font as well. Can't help but wonder if maybe there was a little bit of insider communication there or not. Up at the front, though, in this clean air, Brian Sabelski just managed to set the new fastest lap of the race. Excuse me, no, a new personal fastest lap. Not quite the fastest of the race, I don't believe. No, it was the fastest lap of the race, a 40.86 for Brian Sabelski. He is making the clean air work for him here this evening. And already pulled away to almost a full second lead over the rest of the field in that Nihon Tiger number 85. Coming into tonight's event, the only driver so far to have taken home multiple wins in this ARCA Menards car, leading over Eric Gahn back in second, and Jason Mong. It's actually a tie for second right now between Gahn and Mong in the point standings. But Sabelski is going to be leading them by, call it, about 22 points here this evening, and a win in a double points race like this could be a very big deal. But of course, he still has to actually take home that win. We can't talk about that quite too soon. There's still a very long way to go here this evening, and currently battling happening back for the 4th position right now. Nico Morelli, Brandon Feeney duking out. Morelli's already finding himself up inside the top 5 again from the tail end of the field just 7 laps ago. This driver has got some moves here in this ARCA Menards car right now, trailing behind Brandon Feeney, who is kind of just watching this battle for second going on between Streets and Mong. Mong's going to dive it down low. Is he going to try and make the crossover? No, he's not, because he is going to get loose out of turn number 2. Not quite going to stick for the driver of that Hershey Racing Engines number 65. But he's going to try for it again here, going down to 3 and 4. And down on that low line, it looks like he has got the momentum he needs to get around Garrett Streets to get himself up into the 2nd position. Cars fanning out behind him as everyone tries to scramble for position. Almost 3 wide here at Michigan. Feeney on the bottom. He's going to drift way up. That was nearly contact with Morelli there, and a little bit of contact with Eric Gahn. He's going to get up into the outside wall in that 51 machine. Gahn scrapes against the outside wall. That's 2 positions just like that. That puts him back to 7th, which is where he initially qualified, but still not quite where he wants to be here. Still a long way left to go in this race, though. Not even 10 laps into this 100 lap event, but these drivers are absolutely duking it out with everything they've got, and a scrape against the wall for Corey Logan down there. Logan having a bit of trouble in the CZ Robotics entry. That's going to move them down to 7th just like that. All it takes is one little slip up here, race fans. Up at the front, the battle is heating up tremendously. All of that room that Sabelski had built up is gone, and now Garrett Streets finds himself once again up at the lead of the race, but it's only half a second between our top 5 drivers here. Sabelski's going to pull it down low. He's going to try and vie for the lead, and it looks like Feeney is pulling it down low as well. Feeney's trying to go for it as well. That low line seems to be working for these drivers, but now he's going to be left out to dry. As a little bit of an accordion there. Eric Gahn goes way up high, and once again we are 3 wide here at the Michigan International Raceway. They back out of it a little bit, trying to play a little bit nicer with each other now. They know they're only 11 laps in the books, but we might as well be at Daytona here this evening. The same general sort of driving style comes into effect here, where we see these trains of drivers 2 by 2, everyone trying to make use of the draft here. And right now, Sabelski seems to be making it work, but we have seen the lead change hands several times. But all the way back to Corey Logan back in 8th is pretty much within a second of our race leader. There's just going to be no real comfortable way to put this as a big swerve coming out of Feeney back there in 6th. He had a little bit of a scrape against the wall there, I think. The rest of the field, 9th through 12th, all fairly spread out back in the back there. They're either going to have to work really well together, which right now it doesn't seem like they're quite doing here. But they're either going to have to work really well together, or they're going to need a caution flag to catch back up to this lead pack here. And honestly, we might just see that happen with how some of these drivers are pushing these cars here. Everyone is vying for every little inch of this track. And mind you, this speedway is 72 feet wide all around on the racing surface. That is a lot more room than these drivers normally have to play with here in the ASRC Oval Series. Of course, this is predominantly a short track series, so a lot of these drivers a little bit out of their element here, driving on this big 2-mile long speedway. But I'll tell you what, some of these folks are really making it work here this evening. Between you and me, I think some of them are excited at the opportunity to be able to push it 3 wide. Because I'll tell you what, at tracks like Lanier and Langley, we don't get to see that all too often. And of course, here, the speeds are so much higher, the turns are so much wider. It's almost a little bit liberating for some of these drivers who spend most of their time down on the short tracks. But of course, that's just how it goes in the real-life ARCA Menard series as well. They go to pretty much a crazy big variety of tracks. No dirt tracks on the schedule for the ASRC Oval Series this season, so not 100% one-to-one with all the different tracks that the ARCA Menard series goes to, but we will be going to a road course later on this season, and that will be quite the spectacle, I think. It's been a long time since the ASRC Oval Series has been to a road course, and they went to it in a very different car than this one. And I believe the last time they went there was all the way back, and I want to say season number 4. Might actually even be season number 3. And mind you, we are on season 12 now. A lot of the drivers who dominated those road course events, those major road course ringers here in the Oval Series, not necessarily all of them compete here anymore. It's going to be very interesting to see who all manages to make it work out there. But for now, we still have darn near over 4/5 of this race left to go pretty much. And so far, everyone's playing nice with each other. Believe it or not, everyone is on their best behavior this evening. The pack is starting to break up just a little bit. Sabelski, once again, has broken away from the field with over a second-long lead. He does not have a whole lot he needs to worry about right now. Still a little bit of a hornet's nest behind him, but not quite as drastic as we saw just a couple of laps ago. Let's actually take a moment. Let's ride on board with our race leader, see what all is going on behind him here. Riding on board with Mr. Brian Sabelski in the Nihon Tiger number 85. And of course, that is for twitch.tv/Nihon Tiger, who should be broadcasting his perspective of this event right here, right now, if you want to ride on board with one of these ASRC Oval Series drivers and see what all they are up to. But you can see just how huge of a lead that Mr. Sabelski has broken off here right now. And we're only 18-19 minutes event. That is going to be a big deal, especially if we end up going through green flag pit stops. That will do a lot to benefit him here tonight. But he's just got to hope that the caution flag does not fly, or else all of that work that he's put in here might just get thrown out the window. A little bit further back in the back of the field, some of these drivers back near the tail end. Nico Morelli, Jeremy Morrow, Bill Watkins all duking it out with each other. Johnny Bell in there as well in that Dirt TV number 27. All these drivers have kind of fallen away from the main pack here this evening, but they're still trying to get their own little pack going themselves. And if they can all work together and get a drafting chain going, it is possible that they will be able to catch back up to our race leaders, but it's going to require a lot of patience and a lot of cooperation, and who knows how much these drivers are actually going to be willing to work together to make this happen. Of course, unfortunately, we don't have access to the radio communications between these drivers, so who knows if any of them are actually cooking up any sort of strategies here. Nico Morelli pulls it up way up high, trying to get around Johnny Bell, and it does not look like he's going to get the run to make it happen. And actually, Jeremy Morrow is going to get him around him as well here, coming down the front stretch. Battling with each other is not going to be the key to success to catch back up to the rest of the field. They might just be hoping that this Hornet's Nest up at the front ends up causing a caution and get bunched back up to the field that way. But right now they have, looks like nearly a 2, almost 3 second deficit they need to figure out how they're going to be making up here this evening. Further up in the field though, Eric Gahn and Corey Logan have been trading positions back and forth. Both of them also finding themselves in a little bit of a bubble from the whole rest of the field here. Corey Logan up high, Eric Gahn down low. Side by side for these two Arca Menards drivers. And both of them about 3 seconds away from the main pack right now. And it's the same deal that we were seeing with Johnny Bell and the rest of the drivers back near the tail end of the pack. Once you've lost the draft of the main pack, the only thing you can really do is work together to catch back up to them. Otherwise, you're all just going to be stranding yourselves out here far back in the back, and Eric Gahn's going to strafe against the outside wall. That's not doing him any favors here on that 51 machine, but that will allow Johnny Bell and the rest of the field back behind him to catch up to him. And suddenly, we have our own second little pack forming as they start to catch up to Corey Logan as well. They might all just be able to generate the necessary momentum to catch up to the front half of this field. Of course, that is all a whole lot of what ifs here. Let's get a top-down view of the speedway here, see a little bit better at how far all of these drivers are spread out. And everyone's taking a different line here. Of course, being in the draft is always ideal, but when you can get just that little bit of extra momentum off the corner, sometimes it's worth losing the draft of the car in front of you to make it happen. Right now, looking at 6th on back through 12th here, going down into turn number 1 and turn 2 here. Everyone pretty equally spaced out, more or less. And of course, looking up at the pack at the front of the field, it's pretty much the same story with, again, Brian Sabelski has now broken away from the field by 2.3 seconds. And mind you, this is a fixed setup race, so it's not like he has an aerodynamic advantage going on here that's allowing him to break away so quickly. It's just, he has managed to make it happen just on raw pace pretty much. But still a long way to go here this evening. Brian Sabelski leads the way. Garrett Streets, Brandon Feeney, your top 3. And of course, Jason Mong down there in that pack as well, battling it out with Brandon Feeney, and Jason Gardner's almost taking it 3 wide here in that number 93 machine. Thinking about taking it 3 wide, not quite making it work, and just not quite enough room between Feeney and Mong to make it happen. But now he's got some momentum going into the corner again. Almost makes contact with the back of the Liqui number 38. Has to get on the brakes, and you saw him get a little bit loose there. Still keeping it pointed in the right direction, but that is a lot of that built-up momentum gone just like that for the driver of the number 93 machine. And it's not necessarily going to be easy to get all of that built back up here. All of this pack within a second of each other. Then it's a whole big gap up to the front of the field, and another big gap all the way back to Corey Logan. 5 seconds now is the difference from the drivers in 6th through 12th and the drivers inside the top 5. That is going to be really difficult for these drivers to actually make back up. So really, I think everyone outside of the top 5 here is pretty much just hoping for a caution to get things sorted out, and it's entirely possible we're going to be getting some with how these drivers back here have been duking it out. Johnny Bell and Jeremy Morrow right up close to each other, and Luca Morelli is all the way back at the tail end of the field, which is really shocking to see. Maybe he's burned up his tires, but mind you, just a couple laps ago, Morelli went from 12th all the way up inside of the top 5, and now we find him all the way back at the tail end of the field once again. He had an amazing run going in that Dirty Mo Radio entry, and now he's finding himself in a little bit of a difficult situation again. Coming into tonight's event, Morelli was back in 13th in the championship standings, but also he has not been able to compete full-time so far this season, so he has missed a couple of races, and once we start to see drop weeks get factored in, that could really shake up the standings. But right now, that 14 machine having a bit of trouble here, and I can't help but wonder, maybe once pit cycles go through, he'll be able to get some of that ground back up. But right now, running back in the 12th position, almost a full second back from any other driver in the field. Currently up here closest battle on the speedway, though, is the battle for 6th between Johnny Bell, Jeremy Morrow, and Corey Logan here. About 0.4 of a second between the three of them. Logan once again trying to make that high line work, and so far it actually has not been that bad for them. But Johnny Bell's going to come in here with a massive run down on the low line, not quite enough to make the pass happen. But he carried a ton of speed into that corner pretty much out of the blue. Going to be pulling it side by side down into turn number 2, and Jeremy Morrow is right behind. He is just waiting for an opportunity to strike here in that SM Racing number 74. Running here back in the 7th position as he gets around the 24. Corey Logan cheering on his teammate up in position number 2 right now. Of course, that 15 of Garrett Streets and Morrow being the SM in SM Racing products. Of course, those drivers have been putting together button boxes and other sim racing gear purely because they felt the stuff on the market wasn't exactly what they were looking for, so they decided to make one themselves and decided, you know what, that was kind of enjoyable. We can probably just start selling these, and that's exactly what they did. They've been riding on board with the ASRC Oval Series for several seasons now, and have been really dedicated supporters of the league. So, of course, a big thank you to the folks out there with the SM Racing Products team. More drivers getting involved in this battle for 6th, though. Corey Logan and Bill Watkins all now within 0.6 of a second here of Mr. Johnny Bell, and actually, yeah, Bill Watkins is in that battle as well. Both Sharpie cars here in this battle, though actually it looks like Michael Sparks is not on the lead lap, so that second Sharpie car is not a part of this battle. No, it's actually going to be the first Sharpie car that's not a part of this battle. That 42 is not on the lead lap here of Mr. Michael Sparks. Looks like he decided to go down pit lane a couple of laps ago. That will put him a lap down, but only one lap, which of course he will be getting back should a caution flag come out anytime soon. And we almost had one there. That's a big move from Morrow in front of Gone there. Drivers trying to make every inch of this racetrack work. Sure, they do have 72 feet of room to work with, but that still is a limited amount of space. And if they're not paying enough attention, it's still plenty easy to make car contact. And at these speeds, it is really easy to make a just catastrophic race-ending mistake. Another driver going to be coming on down pit lane, though. That's going to be Mr. Brandon Feeney in the Liquid Molly number 38. And it looks like he locked up his brakes just a little bit coming on down into pit lane here. Of course, he's most likely going to be putting on new tires here, so it doesn't matter all that much that he locked them up, and he actually locks them up a little bit again going down into his pit box. What will the call be for the number 38? I would assume it's going to be 4 tires. Sure enough, 4 tires and fuel will be the call for that number 38 down in his pit box for 14.87 seconds. Not half bad, but it is still going to be bumping him down a lap here this evening. And now that puts Mr. Michael Sparks in a difficult position, because now Sparks is not the lucky dog candidate anymore. Another driver electing to come on down pit lane. That's going to be the CZ Robotics number 24 of Corey Logan making their stop now here this evening. Only going to be the 3rd driver on the speedway to make their stop, but sometimes short pitting the field is just the way to go. I would not be surprised if we see the rest of our leaders come on down here in the next couple laps. And sure enough, I say that Brian Sabelski and Jason Gardner are both into pit lane here, as Corey Logan, 4 tires and fuel is going to be the call for them as well. Here comes Sabelski. Gardner not all that far behind here. And that will have Garrett Streets be back as our race leader in a little bit of a sharper turn into the pit box than maybe what Sabelski was aiming for there. Fortunately, here on the IceyToo.com platform, we don't have any pit crew over the wall that you have to worry about running into. But that still is a little bit of visible damage on the left front nonetheless. Very similar times for Sabelski and Gardner, though. Actually, no, identical pit times for Sabelski and Gardner. That said, Gardner was about 2 seconds faster off pit lane itself than Sabelski was, but their actual time under service was identical between those 2 drivers. And sure enough, Sabelski is actually going to filter out still on the lead lap here as Garrett Streets comes on down to pit lane. He's going to be the next one to make the call down, and that will have Jason Mong now as our current race leader. He will be picking up at least 1 bonus point here tonight for 1 lap led to his name. And there's the number 93 of Jason Gardner unlapping himself as he goes by that 65, and you can see the difference that 37 laps of degradation does to these tires. Gardner just absolutely sailing away from Mong without a care in the world. Now the big question is going to be, when do we see the rest of these drivers come on down pit lane? Currently a battle going on for the 2nd position between Bell and Morrow there, and Morrow almost making contact with the number 27 as he drifted up the speedway, and oh, gets really loose coming out of turn number 2. A 2nd time almost contact with the 27 of Johnny Bell. That could have been really bad really fast. I would not be surprised if we see that 74 coming on down to pit lane here pretty soon, because with that slide like that, I would be really worried about what my tires are going to do in these next couple of laps. That said, Morrow elects to stay out. Jason Mong is going to make the call down to pit lane, and that will give Johnny Bell a bonus point for 1 lap led here this evening. Now, I'd imagine now that kind of puts him in a position where the last of the drivers still out on the speedway are all waiting for everyone else to pit so that they can pick up a bonus point for leading a lap. But of course, they have proved us wrong in the past. Johnny Bell up here in the front, he's got that bonus point picked up, and it looks like he is coming down to the low line of speedway. Will he be pitting in this time? No, he will not. Johnny Bell elects to stay out. So will Morrow. So will Gone. So will Morelli. These front runners are going to just be running these cars until the very last drop of fuel, it looks like. And you know what? Fair enough. I mean, right now they're in a position where they kind of need to try an alternate strategy from our race leaders in order to make this happen here this evening. But they've got to watch out, because Brian Zabelski just once again set the new fastest lap of the race with a 40.69. So if that's going to do Some pretty heavy damage here considering our four drivers, excuse me, they're still out. Bell, Morrow, Gon, Morelli. Their best laps are all in the 41-second range. And of course, Sabelski just at 40.69. Almost a full second faster than some of these drivers' fastest laps here. When comparing current lap times, though, it's closer to almost 2, in some cases almost 3 seconds faster than our current race leaders. So Sabelski is absolutely flying here this evening. And I would imagine he might actually be able to lap some of these cars that are still staying out if they don't pit here in these next couple of laps. He might actually lap them on pace out on the speedway. But Jeremy Morrow, Johnny Bell, Eric Gunn, Nico Morelli, they are all committed to this strategy. All 4 of them are going to be staying out on the speedway until they simply do not have the fuel to make it happen anymore. Battle breaking out further back in the back there. There is Garrett Streets catching up to the Liqui 38 of Brandon Feeney. Streets hit a little bit after Feeney did, so slightly newer tires than the driver of the Liqui number 38. Little bit of a slide out of the corner for the 15 though, so gotta be careful about doing that. Every little slide like that is going to permanently ruin these tires for these ARCA Menards drivers, so they gotta be really careful they don't do any sort of drifting here this evening. Jason Mong just came out of pit lane though in that 65 machine, and it looks like he was down in his pit stall for 2.5 minutes, so potentially, oh yeah, there is some serious damage to the side, both sides of that Hershey's Racing Engine's number 65. He has had a little bit of trouble this evening somewhere on the speedway. And he's actually going to be pulling it back down pit lane. I think Mong's decided, you know what, I'm not happy with how this car is driving. I'm a little bit worried he might actually be pulling it down to his hauler, but I'm not 100% certain on that one. Looking like he's having a little bit of a connection issue here in that number 65 machine though, so we'll give him a minute and then try and come back and see what the situation is with him. Johnny Bell up here is still out on the speedway. He is still leading laps. He is still committed to the bit here. Jeremy Morrow just behind in that 74, getting around the 51 of Eric Gon. All of them are still committed to the same strategy, but that is not going to stop them from passing each other for position. And Gon seems to actually be slowing down pretty heavily here in that 51. Not quite as bad as I thought, though. I thought he had the parachute deployed back there a little bit worse, but sure enough, he is still battling it out with Jeremy Morrow, and I can't help but wonder how that is going to cycle into their strategies here, because duking it out on the speedway is going to make their fuel consumption worse, and we might see them both have to pit even before Johnny Bell does. Morrow's going to file on in behind Gondo, try and work in the draft here. That will do him some favors in saving that fuel. Maybe enough to let him stay out another lap. But if we see him try to go for a pass again, he might throw all that out the window for a second time. Nico Morelli is going to be the first of this alternate strategy to make the call down pit lane, though. He's had enough. He's making the stop. And I would imagine we're going to once again see the call for 4 tires and fuel, but I don't think that Morelli, oh, trouble. Big lockup going into his pit box, and he overdrives the pit lane by several stalls. Is his crew working on the car here? Sure enough, his crew is working. He's in the box. That's all that matters. 4 tires and fuel for the number 14, but that is not going to allow him to stay on the lead lap here. That finally just leaves Bell, Gon, and Morrow left on this run till it's empty strategy. Everyone else in the field has come down pit lane roughly in the lap 30-ish area. And of course, looking here at the stints, everyone roughly running 30-ish laps before making the call to come down pit lane, except for Bell, Morrow, and Gone. So they're all proving they at least got 45 laps of fuel in these Arco Menards cars. Make it actually 46. I'm not 100% certain that these drivers who initially pitted have the fuel to make it to the end. But Eric Gaughan's going to make the call to come down pit lane. He's going to be the next one on the call. And Nico Morelli's still in his pit stall. He's been in that stall for 1:20 now. Morelli might either have some more serious damage than he thought, or he might have gotten a penalty for driving through those boxes. I'm not 100% sure, but we do see some damage being repaired on the front end of that 14, so it looks like it was actually damage being repaired. And sure enough, next for the call, Johnny Bell is going to come down pit lane. Jeremy Morrow is going to elect to stay out, so that will be at least one lap led for the driver of the number 74. Is Johnny Bell going to surprise us with his strategy? Is he going to pull out a two-tire stop or something even more unorthodox? You never know with this 27. Out of any driver on this field, we have seen him pull off more just absolutely crazy strategies than anyone else. But sure enough, it does look like the driver out of Pittsburgh, Pennsylvania is going to go with 4 tires and fuel like everyone else. That just leaves Jeremy Morrow out on the speedway. He's going to pick up the 1 bonus point for leading a lap, and he said, you know what, that's good enough. We're coming down pit lane. Just like that, that will complete our pit cycle, and caution flag is out on the speedway. Trouble for Nico Morelli. Morelli is around on the front stretch, and that's going to have our first yellow flag fly here on lap number 49, right at the tail end of the pit cycle. I would imagine some of these drivers that just came down pit lane are cursing themselves just a little bit. If they had waited just a little bit longer, they would have had a caution flag to work with. That said, everyone is still on the lead lap except for Nico Morelli, who brought out the caution, and Jason Mong, and it looks like Mong actually has officially packed up his car and retired from tonight's event. So that said, let's take a look back. Let's see what brought out this caution flag here on the speedway with the number 14 of Mr. Nico Morelli in the Dirty Mo Radio entry. Oh, wow. Coming out of turn number 4, the 14 just completely snapped out from underneath him. That was really unprecedented. Let's take another look at this. Just the slightest little bit of a slide, and he tries to connect for it, and the car just completely snaps on him. That was a bit of a violent spin. Honestly, very fortunate that he didn't hit anything down on the inside of the track or the outside wall. So you see him trying to hold the slide, and then just bang, it snaps out on him. But sure enough, that's the glory of these 72-foot wide racing surfaces, is that you can get away with having a spin like that without any sort of catastrophe breaking out, as long as you have enough room to do it. Multiple drivers making the call down to pit lane, though. Johnny Bell, Michael Sparks, Corey Logan, Brandon Feeney, and Bill Watkin are actually all going to make a second pit stop here. Sabelski, Screets, Gardner, Morrow, and Gone all elect to stay out. They're actually going to try and run to the end, it looks like. For the rest of the field, I guess they all decided, you know what, we're gonna maybe get a little extra splash of fuel just in case. You never know when you might need it. But we see the strategies kind of differing now. Everyone's got some different ideas on what to do. And as we cross the line to put us halfway through tonight's event, now the big question is going to be, who made the right decision? I believe lights should be going out on the iRacing.com pace car this time by... And we're going to see Johnny Bell, Michael Sparks, Brandon Feeney, Bill Watkins, and Nico Morelli again come down pit lane. It looks like these 5 drivers maybe are not 100% confident on their fuel levels here, trying to splash and dash, so to speak, under this yellow. And they've got to be careful with these stops too, because these stops can actually affect their track position under this yellow flag. But everyone's stop, it was about 4 seconds in length, so everyone's taking like just enough fuel to still be able to get back caught up to the field before we go green flag racing again. But once again, Sabelski, Streets, Gardner, Morrow, and Gone all stay out. They're all feeling confident with what they have underneath them right now. And with 49 laps to go, we're just going to have to see how it plays out for him. But Sabelski is a driver that has a whole lot of experience in the ARCA Menards car, so part of me wants to trust his judgment here. He's going to be the driver leading the field of green, though. Sabelski and Streets going to be side by side, row number 1 for our first restart of tonight's event. Let's see what these drivers have to throw at each other. Green flag up in the air, maybe not quite. Not everyone's 100% sure on when we're going here exactly. I mean, the car is still out on the speedway. Stacking them up once again. Now we're going to try this thing. Green flag up in the air here at the Michigan International Speedway. And oh, trouble. Someone is slow on the start. We are 4 wide here at Michigan. Jeremy Morrow extremely slow on the start. He's going to fall all the way back to 7th immediately, just like that. 3 and 4 wide coming across the line. That was a very scary sight to see, but everyone kept their cars pointed in the right direction. The battle up at the front is pretty dang close, though. Brian Sabelski, Garrett Streets once again duking it out like they've done all race, and almost feels like they've done all season. Coming into tonight's event, Garrett Streets is 4th in the championship standings with a 1 win to his name, 1 back at Lanier, I believe. And a win here tonight would be massive for the driver of that number 15. That would propel him to the lead of the championship if he managed to take home a win here this evening. Of course, Sabelski is right behind him in that number 85 machine, so it's not like things are done and dusted. We've still got a long way left to go here this evening, and Sabelski is certainly not going to make it easy for the driver of that number 15 machine. He may be part of the league's title sponsor, but that is not going to give him any sort of special regards out on the speedway whatsoever. He's going to have to fight for this win just as hard as everyone else. Further back in the field, Eric Gahn side by side with Brandon Feeney, and Johnny Bell is just behind these 2 drivers, waiting for one of them to slip up just a little bit, and he'll be able to capitalize on it in that 27 machine. Of course, that's a big ask. We haven't seen very much in the way of drivers slipping up this evening other than that caution with Nico Morelli. Everyone else has been having pretty solid runs so far here at Michigan. And of course, this is one of the biggest tracks the ASRC Oval Series has ever been to. Might actually be the biggest track that the ASRC Oval Series has ever been to, which is only fitting since this is the longest distance race that they have been on in terms of actual mileage. And of course, next week heading on over to the Phoenix Raceway, so that's going to be back to our normal 100 laps, 100 miles, whichever comes first sort of deal. But tonight, these drivers are getting a little bit of overtime here in these ARCA Menards cars, and every little bit of seat time counts. Every minute, every lap behind the wheel of these cars is a little bit more experience these drivers can take on later into the season. And who knows, we could even see these ARCA Menards cars come back next season. And especially if we end up having a season 2 in these cars. All that extra experience is going to be a massive bonus to these drivers. Once again, a lot of the battle going on is the battle up at the front. 1 second divides our top 4 drivers right now this evening. Street, Sabelski, Gardner, and Gahn. Taking a look a little bit further out, Feels like Gardner has been up and down and all over the place in the field so far this evening, but right now he is up +7 from where he qualified. Looking to try and take home a podium finish here this evening. Which also a driver where a solid finish here tonight in this double points race would be a very big deal for him. Coming into tonight's event, being scored back in the 8th position in the championship standings, right behind Corey Logan and Brandon Feeney. He only has 45 points to his name, and mind you, Mr. Sabelski right in front of him has 134. These double points race are really going to be what some of these drivers need to make up the deficit. Further back in the back, side by side for Johnny Bell and Bill Watkins, once again finding himself battling it out with one of the two Sharpie cars. I believe this is actually the first time we have seen Watkins bring this Sharpie car out to the speedway. It's got a pretty iconic look to it, and I do believe that there was a real-life car that ran this paint scheme, but I don't 100% remember that one. Nico Morelli in the 14 going for the pass up on the high line. Of course, this is still not for position. Morelli currently the only driver not on the lead lap after that spin that brought out the caution back on lap number 49. Morelli's really in a difficult position. He's pretty much in a spot where he is just running, hoping that other drivers manage to pick up damage and fall back to the end of the field, or somehow miraculously we get 3 more cautions to put him back up on the lead lap. But that, of course, is a very big ask with how things have been going tonight. But speaking of very big deals, the Friday the 13th number 51 machine has found its way up at the front of the field. Mr. Eric Gahn has gotten around Garrett Streets. He's gotten around Brian Zabelski, and he is our new race leader. +6 right now this evening. One heck of a run out of the 51. He has not taken home a win yet this season, but he is currently tied for second in the championship standings with 112 points to his name. A win here tonight is another driver who very likely would be put at the top of the championship standings heading into next week's event at Phoenix, should he be able to make it work. And of course, Gahn also, gotta remember, Gahn is on that alternate strategy here. He pit all the way back about 10 laps later than the rest of the field, so he is pushing that car a lot further than some of these other ARCA Menards drivers, and we could see this alternate pit strategy be making all of the difference here this evening. Because ultimately he's going to be putting on newer tires later than everyone else, just because he's making the old tires last a little bit longer. But we're already 14 laps in the Gahn stint. I don't know if he's going to be able to make the car run as well as it's running right now when we're on lap 90, lap 95. Just going to have to keep an eye on that 51, see what he manages to make happen with the 15 of Garrett Streets breathing down his neck. Speaking of drivers breathing down each other's necks, though, both the orange and white cars, Mr. Brian Sabelski and Jason Gardner, battling it out here. Brandon Feeney, not quite white and orange, white and red's close enough. He's right behind there as well. These three duking it out for the final spot on the podium. About 4/10 of a second dividing all of them for position here. Let's see how the lap times fall when they cross the line. Feeney way up high there. Everyone else trying different lines here this evening. But last time by, Sabelski a 42.22, Gardner 42.29, and Feeney a 41.96. So Feeney was actually the fastest of the 3 drivers here last time by, as they now are within 0.2 of a second. The 3 of them all bunched up together here at this 2-mile-long speedway. Gardner's going to go up high, not quite forfeiting the position here to Feeney. Almost thinking about pushing it 3 wide, not quite able to do it though. Maybe coming down the front stretch, they'll think about it though. sure enough, once again, Feeney backs out just a little bit, and if he didn't, he would have been pushing it 3 wide there. Even at a track as wide as the Michigan Speedway is, not necessarily you want to be doing until, you know, you're at almost the last couple laps of the race. We're only on lap 64. You don't got to be pushing quite that hard yet, but of course, I can say that all that I want. That's not going to stop these drivers from throwing everything they've got at each other. Sabelski is going to be putting the brakes on that number 85 machine. He's going to be coming down for pit stop number 2. So it looks like it is going to be a 2-stop race for all of these drivers. I didn't think it was going to be possible to make it happen on 1 stop, but that begs the question, is Eric Gahn going to try and make it on 1 stop? Because of course he pit so much later than everyone else. Gahn might potentially be able to make it work. He went 46 laps on fuel before he pitted. Going on the assumption that that was all of his fuel, he's going to need to do some monumental fuel saving here to get those extra 4 laps around the speedway. Either that or hope for another caution flag to fly. If we get another yellow, then he might be able to make this strategy work. But that is a very big what if here this evening. Further back in the field, Jeremy Morrow battling it out with another one of those 2 Sharpie cars. That's going to be the 42 of Michael Sparks. Another driver out of Canada that we have not seen here so far this season. Used to run really often a couple of seasons ago, had to take a break for a little while. Great to see him back here out on the speedway. Another Canadian driver to go toe-to-toe with Mr. Brandon Feeney in that number 38. Jeremy Morrow right behind, really trying to make a move happen here in that SM Racing number 74. A little bit hairy with some of those moves, but so far no contact between him or anyone else, so I guess he's managing to make it work though. A couple more of our leaders going to be making the call down to pit lane, and Garrett Streets overdrove his pit stall. That might just ruin his chances of taking home the win here this evening. Just a little bit of extra time, maybe not even a second. And it's not going to quite allow Gardner to get past him, but that can be costly, making those little slip-ups like that. Corey Logan going to be the next driver to make the call on down to pit lane in that number 24, and it actually looks like this is going to be Logan's 3rd stop here this evening. So maybe doing a little bit of IndyCar strategy here tonight. Some of these drivers breaking it up into 2-stop strategies. Other drivers trying to break it on up into 3. And now that's going to be putting Eric Gahn, still our race leader, Brandon Feeney, battling it out for 2nd. Currently about 3 seconds back from our race leader. I'm really curious to see if Gahn is going to try and make this last to the end here. It's an incredibly risky strategy, and it's going to need a little bit of luck to actually make it work. But if it does, we could see Gahn take home the win here tonight. Right now, that 51 is having some internet connection issues here, a little bit of technical difficulties. I guess it only makes sense a little bit in that Friday the 13th car that he decides to get a little bit spooky and not be able to show up on any of our cameras here. You can actually see him kind of flickering in and out of existence in front of these other drivers. Take a look here. Where is Garrett Streets? There is Garrett Streets running pretty close to behind the 51 of Gahn. He might have actually gotten around him here. Yeah, sure enough, he did. Well, we can zoom it out just a little bit. You can see the little bit of the spooky specter that is Mr. Eric Gahn right behind Jason Gardner here, having a little bit of internet troubles here. And of course, all of that flickering we see down this on the speedway is also what these drivers on the track are seeing. So maybe just a little bit of a road hazard, but that's okay. He's still leading tonight's event. Also having maybe a little bit of transponder issues here. Take a moment, let's ride on board with the number 38 of Mr. Brandini. See what all these drivers are up to down on the speedway. Not quite full throttle, gotta lift off a bit on corner entry, but still pretty much putting the power down almost all the way on the speedway, hitting speeds of up to 180 here in these RPM cars. That gaining on Eric Gunn. Gonna have to figure out where to predict that car to be and how to plan to get around it with the technical difficulties he is experiencing here. He's going to pull it on all the way up to the top, and sure enough, he will pass Gunn without too much difficulty, it looks like. Sure enough, Brandon Feeney is our new race leader just like that. He's going to make the pass without too much difficulty. And now the question is going to be, is Gunn going to have to pit soon? Because now that he's not the race leader, that strategy might not be as done and dusted as it first seemed like. Especially considering he's going to be going to the end of this race with incredibly old tires here. Johnny Bell once again finding himself up in position number 2 with 73 laps in the books. Michael Sparks just behind in that Sharpie number 42. And I hate to say it, race fans, but I think we might have lost Mr. Eric Gunn. He's gone all the way back to the 10th position, and I don't see anyone passing him on the speedway. We might have lost Mr. Eric Gunn here this evening. He might have phased out of existence entirely. Going from leading the race to now being nowhere to be seen on the speedway. It's not quite Friday the 13th anymore, but it looks like maybe whatever dark energy is riding on board that car might have caught up to him. He is still being scored as on the speedway, but we cannot locate him anywhere here in that number 51. I don't entirely know what Michigan is like in terms of like UFO sightings, but I think we're going to need to start making some conspiracies here about what exactly happened to that number 51 machine, because he is nowhere to be seen anywhere on this 2-mile-long speedway anymore. 75 laps is the distance, though. As we cross the line, Feeney is going to be our race leader with 25 laps left to go here at the Michigan International Raceway. About, well, 16 seconds really is the difference between Feeney and everyone else on the field. And our top 3 drivers, all drivers that pitted on lap 50 under that caution flag. Some of them might be trying to actually make it all the way to the end without stopping again. I don't think that they'll be able to do so. I could be mistaken on that, but it's going to be really hairy on trying to make that happen. 25 more times around the speedway, and currently the closest battle on the speedway is the battle right here. Johnny Bell and Michael Sparks with about a tenth of a second between the two of them. Sparks up +8, Bell up +6 right now, with 24 laps left to go here at the Michigan International Raceway. And it's really all going to be coming down to pit strategy here tonight. Who made the right calls earlier on in this race? But you never know. They might throw a curveball at us too. We have seen stranger things happen here in the ASRC Oval Series, and you never know when you might get hit with a caution flag just moments before the white flag comes out. And of course, here in the ASRC Oval Series, we do have overtime attempts should they be needed. And Nico Morelli is going to be making the call on down to pit lane, already being scored 3 laps down. We'll have to see, is this a scheduled stop for the number 14, or is maybe a little bit of trouble happening under the hood? Logs out the brakes a little bit. New tires is going to be going on the 14 machine though, so it does look like this is a scheduled stop for Mr. Nico Morelli. Still in a difficult position that's going to require several cautions to get back up on the lead lap here, especially since Bill Watkins is being scored a lap down now in that number 8 Sharpie entry. That means Watkins will actually be the lucky dog should we get a yellow, and that is going to make Mr. Morelli's current situation all the more troublesome here tonight. So the closest battle up on the speedway, that's going to be Johnny Bell and Michael Sparks for the second position with 22 laps left to go here. The rest of the field pretty much completely strung out with each other. Garrett Streets getting decently close to Sabelski, but still a little bit ways back. Call it about 0.4 of a second between these two drivers. Jason Gardner is here too, but he is 1.2 seconds back. Not quite close enough to catch the draft here, so not a whole lot that he can really do to get back up here unless Sabelski and Streets pull alongside each other, start side drafting, trying to battle it out for position. That would allow Gardner to catch up, and it actually looks like there is the 42 of Sparks up there. It looks like they are both looking to try... No, that's actually Morrow, excuse me. That's the 74 of Jeremy Morrow there. So they are all battling for position here, and Morrow is on older tires than Streets or Sabelski, so Morrow can't really do a whole lot to hold them off here. With 20 laps left to go though, it's starting to get into the range where these drivers really need to push whatever equipment they have left here. Side by side for Morrow and Gardner as well, and Gardner's actually going to pass really without too much difficulty. And that still leaves the battle here between Streets and Sabelski. Gardner might actually have closed the gap enough to get back into the draft though. So Gardner actually can get back into this now. And it looks like that's exactly what he's trying to do now, trying to turn this into a bit of a 3-car scuffle here for 4th. And I think all of them are really just hoping that our top 3 drivers actually end up coming down pit lane at some point in these remaining 19 laps, because if they don't, they're going to be finding themselves in a very difficult situation. I'm not 100% sure they're actually going to close this 18-second gap. Mind you, 18-second gap to Sparks, it's a 24-second gap for the rest of them, so that's going to be pretty difficult to make up. But we can't count anyone out of this quite yet here this evening. Johnny Bell and Michael Sparks also battling it out up here. Sparks has been following behind Bell for a little while now. I'm wondering when he's planning to pull out and try and make that move happen. Both of them go down to the low line. Sparks pulls it back up. Will it be enough to get around him? I don't think he's going to have the momentum coming out of the corner to make it happen. Sure enough, no, he is not. Side by side for position number 2. Both of them 18 seconds back from Brandon Feeney. Things are smooth sailing for that number 38 machine right now. All he has to do is make 18 more circuits around this 2-mile speedway, and he'll be good to go with, I believe, taking home his first ever win here in the ASRC Oval Series. Jason Gardner still duking it out with Brian Sabelski back here for 5th though. Gardner trying to make the high line work here on corner entry, and doesn't quite look like it's working. He's fallen back a little bit in the mid corner here. Getting the run down the straightaway though, but not quite able to make that momentum actually work for him here. Sabelski goes up onto the high line this time by Gardner, still not anywhere near enough of a run to try and capitalize off of it here. And down the backstretch, so of course this is a D-shaped oval, so the backstretch is going to be better for building up momentum than the front stretch. Pure straightaway back here, and like the little bit of curve they have going on up at the front of the track, But again, Gardner not quite able to make the momentum of the draft actually work for him and get around that 85 machine here. As we cross the line last time by, sure enough, Jason Gardner a 1/10 of a second slower than Brian Zabelski. And it actually looks like everyone on the field is setting lap times right now close to 1.5 to 2 seconds slower than their personal fastest laps. So everyone in the field is feeling the wear of these tires right now. 15 laps left to go here at the Michigan International Raceway. Not a whole lot of time left on the clock to make things happen here. The big question everyone is holding their breath for is, will Brandon Feeney need to pit? Will Feeney need to pit? And that also raises a question for our other drivers in the top three as well, because Bell and Sparks are also on the same strategy as Brandon Feeney is right now. Sparks having trouble though. He is on the, not on the brakes, but he has a parachute deployed behind that 42. He is losing ground monumentally here, all the way back down to 5th from 3rd in just a couple of moments. And it looks like we might actually see Sparks come on down pit lane. Sure enough, Sparks has said, you know what, nah, I'm bailing on this strategy. Did not get me quite as far as I wanted it to. The question now is going to be, will these new tires and presumably fuel be enough to carry him back up to the front? Bell and Streets now battling it out up here, and Streets is on 16 lap newer tires than Johnny Bell. Same as Sabelski and Gardner, both of them also on 16 lap newer tires than Johnny Bell is. Johnny is going to have his work absolutely cut out for him if he wants to try and hang on to a podium position here. Looks like he's having trouble keeping up with Streets though, so it might not be enough to make it work. Nothing else now. The goal is just to hold off Sabelski and Gardner. Sabelski in the 85 going to be going up high. Gardner follows along suit, and there is, looks like that is, I want to say, Sparks coming out of pit lane. And not quite enough for Bell to be able to hang on here. Gardner's still going up on the high line, trying to get around that 85. He's going to drift up a little bit, lose the momentum. Bell is still in this battle. Bell is still in this battle, and there is a lapped car behind both of them with significantly newer tires than them. I can't help but wonder if that is going to end up playing a factor here. How hard is Sparks going to push in this battle? Sparks pulls it up on high on Johnny Bell, gets around him not without too much difficulty. Now the question is Sparks going to be able to catch up to Gardner and Sabelski and pass them as well? Once again, of course, this is not for position, but it could have some implications on the lead of this race depending on how things play out. Only 11 laps left to go here, and as we cross the line, still 11 to go because Feeney has already crossed the line, but the clock is ticking here. There is not a whole lot of room left to make things happen here. No, 3 wide here for second place. That could have been really hairy there. Actually, that's for third, excuse me, between Sabelski and Gardner. Streets a little bit further up from this battle right now, but that was a very hairy situation. Double high fives are up in the air though for Brandon Feeney. We are officially at 10 laps left to go for our race leader, and he's actually setting similar lap times to Streets and Sabelski. As long as Feeney has enough fuel in that number 38 machine, he should be good to go to the end. And considering he's made 3 pit stops now, he's one of the very few drivers that have actually made 3 pit stops now. Brandon Feeney might just actually have fuel to the end. Also, we have officially gotten word from the folks down on pit lane. Eric Gahn is alive and well. He has not been abducted by aliens. He has been found in his race hauler A-OK. But Eric Gahn, has he retired? Eric Gahn has not retired from the event. He is actually back in the car, back out on the speedway, being scored 19 laps down. But Eric Gahn is back in it nonetheless. Still looking at the battle between Brian Sabelski and Jason Gardner. These two drivers are still throwing it down with everything they've got with 9 laps left to go here. Of course, that is Mr. Nihon Tiger, Brian Sabelski down on the inside, Jason Gardner up high, and Gardner's just really not getting the momentum he needs off of the high line here. 8 laps left to go for these two drivers. Both of them trying to make it stick, trying to make something work. And I'll tell you what, the one driver who is really enjoying this battle right now is Mr. Garrett Streets, because while these two continue to duke it out with each other, Streets is slowly but surely pulling away from him. It's not going to be possible for Streets to make up a 17-second deficit in just 7 laps. But it will be enough for him to try and lock in a second place finish while Sabelski and Gardner continue to battle for that final podium spot here this evening. Of course, Gardner driving in that Camry entry. I don't think that Toyota runs an ARCA all that much, but sure enough, he's trying to make it happen here. Gardner down the low line, and it looks like not quite able to make the pass happen. Looked like he was trying to make it happen just a little bit. Backed out of it. Trying to build up some momentum on this back straightaway, but it's not going to be enough. He's going to fall back once again. 6 laps left to go here at the Michigan International Raceway. 6 laps to sell the score. 6 laps to declare a winner of our second bonus points race of the season. And our next bonus points race, that's not even going to be happening until sometime in November. So this is kind of a last chance for these drivers to pick up some extra bonus points in their pocket before the latter half of the season. Right now, high five up in the air, 5 laps left to go for Brandon Feeney. And right now, everything is looking A-OK for that number 38. He might just be able to get it done here tonight. Let's take a look up there at that number 38. Let's actually take a moment to ride on board with him. Let's just take a listen. Is he lifting and coasting through the corners? Yes, he is. Brandon Feeney is in full fuel-saving mode right now. Desperately trying to get every last drop that he can to work with him for these final 4 laps. He is looking coasting big time through these corners. Will it be enough is going to be the big question, though. Still side by side for third between Sabelski and Gardner as they continue to duke it out here. All 3 of them, Streets, Sabelski, and Gardner, they're battling for position, sure, but they're also sitting here and wondering, will Brandon Feeney run out of fuel? He is stretching it incredibly thin. And if they're lucky, all 3 of them might be walking away with podium finishes here tonight. They all know they're going to need a caution, or they're going to need Feeney to run out of fuel to make it happen, though, because it is simply not possible for them to make up a 16-second deficit right now. That said, looking at the interval for Garrett Streets, he is closing the gap faster than we would normally see, so Feeney is having to save fuel incredibly heavily here. Streets almost making up a second lap here. Gonna be 2 to go when we next cross the line. And of course, Feeney has a 15-second gap on this battle that we are watching right now, side by side with Gardner and Sabelski. So sure enough, 2 to go. Feeney just crossed the line. Will he have the fuel to make it to the end? And if not, Garrett Streets looks like he will be taking home the win if Feeney is not able to. Then it's going to be the question between Will Gardner or Sabelski be able to walk away with second should fortune turn their way. And of course, all this hinges on there not being a caution in these next, call it about 30 seconds before the white flag flies. Right now, things are looking good. Let's see what's going on up at the front. Feeney is in massive fuel save mode, but he is going to take the white flag here. One more time around the Michigan International Speedway, and we might just see Brandon Feeney, fuel saving like his life depends on it, take home his first win here in the ASRC Oval Series. Just half of a speedway left to go, one more mile for the driver of that number 38 machine, going through turns 1 and 2, 3 and 4. I know how to do math. Brandon Feeney is going to take home his first win here in the ASRC Oval Series and be the winner of the second bonus points race here in season number 12 of the ASRC Oval Series. Following on in behind, it's going to be Garrett Streets. Then it's going to be, look at that, Jason Gardner has passed Sabelski for the podium. Jason Gardner going to round out position number 3 here this evening. What a heck of a race here tonight. These drivers really made their different strategies work, and Brandon Feeney, last pit on lap number 50, managed to make it happen here tonight. One heck of a test of endurance for all of these drivers. Some managing to make it work a little bit more than others, and I'm sure a lot of them are really thrilled to hear that we are going to be going back to familiar territory in the form of the Phoenix Raceway next week, a track that has been on the ASRC Oval Series schedule many times in the past. But for now, Feeney is going to be the driver that makes it work, and it looks like we're not actually even going to be getting a burnout from that number 38. He might just be out of fuel here. Someone's really speeding down the front stretch, though. Looks like that is the 14 of Nico Morelli. Not quite going into pit lane, but we'll call that one good enough. That said, race fans, don't go anywhere. We will be back here in just a moment with some words with your top 3 finishers here tonight. Alrighty, race fans, welcome back to the Michigan International Raceway for round 5 of season 12 of the ASRC Oval Series. Mr. Brandon Feeney here, taking home his first league win on one of our 4 double points races so far this season. You couldn't have picked a better time to do it, Brandon. How are you feeling tonight?
I'm feeling pretty good. I
Alrighty, race
figured
fans,
I haven't talked to you in a while, so I figured I'd try to win this race so we can have a little talk.
Well, you managed to make it happen. It's been a little bit too long since we've managed to have a conversation. Of course, with scheduling issues between the other league we're in and all sorts of different stuff, but you finally managed to make it happen. When did you come into tonight's race, did you think this was going to be the race where you actually took home your first win?
We did practice, and I was pretty fast in practice compared to the other lap time, so I thought maybe I could do it on speed. And then we were looking at the lap of the yellow, and there's 3 or 4 guys that said we can't do it on fuel. So I said, you know what? They're not going to go in. I'm going to try it. You can't beat them, join them, and I figured I could beat them that way.
Well, you managed to make it work, and I definitely heard you lifting and coasting in those final couple laps. How much fuel did you actually have left there?
I ran out coming out of 3. Or coming out of 4, sorry, and yeah, I was shutting the car off too for the last 25 laps.
Well, I mean, you got to do what you got to do, and you managed to make it work here tonight. One heck of a run. Next week, heading to a track that we have a little bit of history with, heading on over to the Phoenix Raceway. How are you feeling about heading over there in this car?
Then we'll just play it by ear, see how it is when we get there, because I don't know what I'm racing next week beforehand, so I usually race a car for about 2 hours before this, and I just got to thank Ryan O'Donnell for making this paint scheme look like my real life car.
Good deal. Well, thank you for coming out, and of course, congratulations on the win. The microphone is all yours, Mr. Feeney. Who all do you want to thank for making everything happen here tonight?
First, I got to thank you for having the broadcast up. I know you've been having some computer issues. I got to thank ASRC for hosting this. And I got to thank Liquid Molly and K1 Graphics, all that helped me in real life so I can actually get to play the video game.
Good deal. Well, congratulations on the win here this evening, and I look forward to seeing you next week.
I'll see you Thursday.
Perhaps so. We'll see. Fishing back in position number 2, Mr. Garrett Streets, one half of our title sponsor here tonight. Another podium to your name this evening. How are you feeling?
Feeling pretty good. We got another one. Feeney saved a ton of fuel. I do not know how he did that. I am impressed. So congratulations to him on the win. And yeah, excellent. Had another pole tonight. Had a lot of speed. I tried to save fuel at the beginning because I wasn't sure if people were going to play the 2-stop game or the 1-stop game. And I was happy to see it go to a 2-stop race. And unfortunately, just didn't have enough to get back up to Feeney and catch him.
Still one heck of a run either way. What exactly might have had to have gone different tonight for you to be taking home the checkered flag?
I don't really think anything could have happened. Probably not that caution in the middle there. Yeah, Brandon's fuel strategy. I don't think there's anything I could have done to beat that. Maybe if I would have ran harder at the beginning of the race and gained some more time, but with that caution coming out, we all restarted back in an equal playing field. So unfortunately, I don't think there was much we could have done, but we brought a fast SM Racing Products Pontiac to the track tonight, and hopefully we'll have another fast one next week.
Yeah, that seems like a solid plan to me. Coming into tonight, 4th in the championship, walking away with a podium, definitely going to be a big deal for you heading into Phoenix Raceway next week. How are you feeling heading back to a little bit of a shorter track?
Phoenix isn't one of my best tracks. It's just pretty quirky. It's not really like anything else on the schedule. We'll see how it goes. Try to get some practice in this week and see if we can be fast again next week.
Good deal. Well, the microphone's all yours, Mr. Streets. Who you want to thank for making it all happen?
I want to thank you for broadcasting. Definitely glad you're back. Hopefully your computer issues are resolved. I want to thank Jason for putting it on, and I think Johnny's been doing some of the graphic stuff recently. So thank you to all the people who make ASRC happen. Want to give a shout out to my girlfriend Morgan. She's watching. She watches every Monday night and cheers me on. And want to thank Jeremy for being the other half of the SM Racing Products team. And if anyone out there is in the market for a button box or any sim racing hardware, be sure to check out smracingproducts.com.
Good deal. Well, thank you for coming out. Congratulations on the podium, and I look forward to seeing you next week.
Yep. Thank you, Aiden. We'll see you next week.
And finally, rounding out the top three here tonight, the man that makes it all happen, Mr. Jason Gardner, walking away with another podium. How are you feeling here this evening?
I'm feeling pretty tired. After missing the last 2 weeks, I'm pretty happy with just getting a top 5 finish, but managed to get top 3 finish. It almost feels like a win.
Yeah, one heck of a run either way. And of course, always on one of these double points nights, it's always a big deal to be walking away with the podium. That was a crazy battle you were having with Sabelski in those last couple of laps, though. Did you have any sort of doubts on how that battle was going to play out?
Yeah, those last few laps, it seems like every time I try to pass them, it just seems like the right front tire just wanted to give up. So that was actually some serious doubt there last few laps that I wasn't even going to be able to pass Brian. But coming out of turn 2, I think he managed to slip up just a little bit, lost the pace, and I just took the opportunity, and luckily the car stuck.
Sure enough, sometimes it's just those little moments that add up and make it all fall into your favor. What do you think might have had to have gone different tonight for you to have been walking away with the checkered flag, though?
Learn how to save fuel. Because yeah, I'm still shocked that he was able to go that far on the tank of fuel.
Yeah, it was definitely running it pretty close, but he just barely managed to make it work.
Yeah, because at that restart, I was fully convinced that after the pits he was going to be at least a lap short, and we were actually fighting for the win. That's how sure I was. But yeah, he managed to pull it out and pull out a win. So congrats to him.
Sure enough, maybe a little bit mischievous with the strategy, but he managed to make it work. Next week, though, heading on to what feels like a short track compared to this, and it's still one of the larger tracks on the schedule. Heading on over to the Phoenix Raceway next week. How you feel heading over there?
It's going to be a mixed bag because usually there'll be some seasons when I run there really, really well, and then there's other seasons that just feel like I'm in the midfield. So we'll just show up next week, and hopefully I'll have one of them days where I actually run good.
Fair enough. Sometimes hope can go a long way. For now, though, the microphone is all yours, Mr. Gardner. Who you want to thank for making it all happen here tonight?
First and foremost, I'd like to thank you for broadcasting. Hopefully the gremlins in your computer stay away for the rest of his lifetime, hopefully. I also like to thank SM Racing for being the sponsor for this series. I also like to thank everybody who showed up to race today and everybody who's out there watching the stream right now. Without y'all, none of this would be possible.
Good deal. Well, thank you for coming out. Thank you for putting this whole event on, and I look forward to seeing you next week at Phoenix.
I'm looking forward to being there too.
You heard it here first, race fans. Your top 3 finishers here tonight at Brandon Feeney, Garrett Streets, Jason Gardner. But of course, there were more than those 3 drivers here in tonight's race, so how about we take a look down at our, of course, unofficial race results as they stand right now. Following our top 3 drivers, Mr. Brian Savelski is going to be bringing it home position number 4 with Johnny Bell in the Dirt TV 27 rounding out the top 5. That's going to be the CZ Robotics number 24 of Corey Logan finishing back in 6th, followed by the 8 machine of Bill Watkins in 7th, rounding out the field that finished on the lead lap here. Then it's going to be Michael Sparks making his first appearance of the season, the other driver out of Canada, bringing it home position number 8, followed by the SM Racing Products number 74 of Jeremy Morrow, bringing it home position number 9. Right out of the top 10, that's going to be Nico Morelli back in the 14, followed by Eric Gahn in the 51 that had that slight abduction by aliens for a couple of laps back in 11th. And Jason Mong rounding out the field here tonight in that number 65 machine. That's about all we have here from the Michigan International Raceway. Thank you all for tuning in to what was, without a doubt, the longest race the ASRC Oval Series has ever had. It was definitely one heck of an endurance run for these drivers and one heck of an exciting event. Next week, though, heading on over to the Phoenix Raceway for 100 laps. Going to be one of our traditional 100-mile-long races. For now, though, thank you all for coming out. Thank you all for supporting the stream and supporting the league. And we look forward to seeing y'all next time. Have a good one, race fans.